Fucking sun. Fucking sun. Hi everyone, I just finished my first game ever. So yeah, you might be seeing this video after my 1 month, 1 game challenge, but I was caught in this game jam right in the middle of it, so I decided to plan things accordingly. This makes Starve, the name of my game, my first game ever released. And I gotta admit, it's terrible. I'm not proud of it. It's bad, really bad. Ugly UI, the map is awful, unpolished, the game is unbalanced, there's not even an escape menu. Quit the game. The only way to quit the game is either through the task manager, either by enduring the torture and despair you get by finishing a run. And it's so full of bugs you'll be lucky to finish a run without a game-breaking crash. The only thing I genuinely enjoy in this game is the music. And I didn't compose it. But I guess most game jam projects end up like this. I really don't know. As awful as my game is, I learned so much in these 2 weeks. So let me walk you through the lessons I learned during this game jam. First lesson. My players are not me. It seems straightforward, right? Even though during this very small amount of time I only made my girlfriend try the game, that was enough to make me realize that we had completely different ways of playing the game and of interacting with the environment. To how we use the controls first. My girlfriend doesn't have the same experience as I do with PC games, and especially these top-down camera views, so her first feedback was that she would have preferred to be able to move the camera by placing the mouse at the edge of the screen, where I had only implemented a WASD movement for the camera. She also struggled with targeting animals when using the sleigh power, and I had never felt this difficulty. This pushed me to implement a different targeting system by clicking on the icons that appear over the animals when you're zoomed out enough. But the difference in experience on the platform doesn't explain everything. She also interacted with the environment in a very different way than I did. So the first thing she did was to unlock the human's status bars, which is also how I approached a new run. But then her first attempt and reflex was to try to starve the human as fast as possible using the very basic powers you had, which is slay an animal, burn a plant, and dry a lake. So she would not interact with the more complex powers like spawning predators or unlocking more intelligence like the human's inventory or crafted items. Basically, she was trying a gameplay path that I had designed and planned, but I never actually considered it because it wasn't really my way of playing it. And that's totally fine. I guess it's the magic of video games. Different players can have totally different approaches. But as a game dev, I think I should try to make as many of these approaches as enjoyable as possible. And as I designed and built this game, I only made it enjoyable through my approach of the gameplay, which is having a long-term approach, unlocking intelligence, using more powerful powers, but going for a short-term or direct approach, which is something I wanted the player to be able to do. I really wanted this strategy to be viable, was just not really that fun. And this brings me to the second lesson I learned in this game jam: the importance and time required for playtesting and bug fixing. I realized having a prototype up and running fast to have people testing it is crucial. The earlier you can have people testing your game, the better you can adapt to their feedback and fix the bug they encounter. I think I should hand a version of the game that is very roughly balanced and that has the major guidelines set up. I think I've said it all. Basically, the lesson I've learned is make your friends work for you for free. Another meta level lesson I learned is the absolutely crucial necessity to have a proper game design plan. Here on this game jam, I spent a few hours brainstorming, and I then had a very rough idea of where I was going with that game, and I started developing straight away. Bad idea. At this time, I had integrated the advice from professional developers to start building your game from its core elements to the less crucial mechanics. So here I think I followed a correct plan. I started by building the human AI, without which the game could not run. Maybe as soon as a very basic AI was running, I should have started building the player powers right away, but as my mind was already very focused on the AI, I pushed it to a slightly more complex level, which I think was not a very bad idea. I then started building the player powers, then the map, then I switched back to human AI for really complex actions. So I had this part of the advice understood. What I missed was building my game with the greater picture in mind, because there was no greater picture. Basically, every time I added a new functionality, I was building it for that very specific context without really taking a step back trying to see how this new feature could be used in other contexts or how it could interact with other systems. There are countless examples of this mistake in my game, but here's the most explicit one. The first items I added in my game were very basic. Basically food items like apples or meat that just had a food value, or crafting materials like sticks and herb that had no real information to be stored. But as I was adding new items for more complex behaviors and systems, I was still building on my first very simple system because I didn't really have time to refactor everything, which led me having to specify what armor value a cherry had, spoiler alert, 0, or on the opposite, what was the food value of a spear. And I think I could have avoided a huge amount of bugs just by planning the system accordingly in the first place. Just thinking, what are my items going to be? What information do they need to store? How can I organize this? Alright, lesson number 4. I should not underestimate the time polish takes. For those of you unfamiliar with polish, it's a phase in game development where you're trying to enhance the player's experience. You're making small actions feel way more impactful, or just by adding small visuals and sound effects to make the game experience smoother. I really have a problem with polish, as I can't help myself but to start polishing things in the very early stages of development. But I think I have a valid justification of this, which is the fact I'm screen recording my development, so I guess I want it to be watchable at least, but I still totally underestimate the time polish actually takes. Making a game feel good and professional is first of all very hard, and it takes a huge amount of time. And at the same time, it's also extremely important for the player's experience. I think I could have the best game ever designed with genius mechanics and amazing narration, or I don't know, but without proper polish, my game won't go far. So I learned I will have to allocate a proper amount of time to this phase in my next project. The last lesson I've learned, and this is by far the most important one yet, which will have the most impact on my future projects: coding in a clean way. It's not like I already knew this, and I'm trying my best to code in a clean way, but here I really felt the consequences of a messy code. Let me explain. I started my project with clean code principles in mind, but as the deadline approached and I still had a huge amount of work to do, I kind of decided to ignore the clean code principles to go faster, and it worked on the very short term. The first consequence was I was really having a hard time to find where a specific system was coded. It was generally coded in multiple different scripts, and this made me lose a ton of time. The second consequence, every time I added a functionality, as simple as it was, this would lead to the appearance of multiple bugs. And these two consequences combined led to the ultimate backlash, a huge loss in motivation. Every new addition had become a painful chore of trying to find where were the pieces of code of a specific system hiding, leading to an ocean of bugs. I couldn't find any perspective of adding real systems because it was such a mess, and I couldn't find any pleasure in working on that game anymore. And in this 2 weeks game jam, it was okay because anyways it was time to create the menu and basically publish the game. But I guess on a longer project, this could lead to much heavier consequences, like abandoning your project or even your dream. This brings me back to a lesson I learned in my 1 month 1 game challenge, which is setting up a realistic deadline. Overall, this game jam was an amazing experience. And I'm so glad to have done these mistakes on a very small scale project in this amazing community, which is Mini Fantasy. So this concludes the video. A special thanks to the organizer of this game jam, which is part of the Mini Fantasy community. It was really well designed and it helped me a ton on this journey. So thanks. See you around, enjoy life, and as usual, see you around, enjoy life, and as usual, keep pressing that play button.